Guys, good evening. A very warm welcome to one and all present in our chat today. So I hope I'm pretty much audible as well as visible. So today our agenda is to talk about some potential solution drivers. So we will be talking about what are some prime reasons and what are some prime solution drivers which is helping to formulate any solution to our business data science problem. So we will be going one by one with all of them and what's happening around in that area. So we will be seeing and prominently we'll be seeing with respect to our big data technology. So I'll also introduce you to a concept of big data, and according to that, what are my potential key drivers? So what exactly is driving the entire solution exactly in this phase? So we will be talking about that. So that's pretty much what the agenda is. But as always, it's pretty much a live session. So any questions, anything in general also which you want to talk, guys, you are free to put up your question on the chat window and I'll try to take up that. Right? So it's pretty much a live session. So let's get started, everybody. So before moving further, my name is Arpit Jain. And I'm here because data science is what my passion is, and I really like sharing my expertise with people around me. And along with that, I do possess technical expertise in data science area, having solved multiple projects. And along with that, I'm also a motivational speaker. So I do talk to students regarding placements, career drives, and whatnot. So in general question also, if you have anything, please feel free to reach out. We can always talk. It's pretty much a live session, guys. So I'm happy to take up the questions here as well. Cool. So let's get started with our today's agenda. So today, our prime objective is to understand what all are my key solution drivers. And we will be seeing actually with reference to big data here. So I'm going to introduce you to a concept of big data. And anyway, we have been using big data as a keyword in our previous discussions as well. But I'm going to give you a briefer about what exactly big data looks like and how we can use big data and how big data plays an important role in respective to our which we're talking about. So we'll take it side by side likewise. Cool. So this is what my agenda for today looks like. So moving forward, as always, we have a quote for the day. It's said by one of a very famous statistician: torture the data and it will confess to anything. Very, very, very famous thing. So torture the data and you'll get confessed to anything. So when I say torturing the data here, I do not say that you want to hang the data to death, right? It's not like that. So we're going to use the EDA process. So basically, the keywords which come here are data wrangling, or this is also called as munching, or data analysis, crunching. They all are synonymous terms, guys. They all are synonymous terms. When I say data wrangling, when I say data crunching, when I say data munching, data analysis, everything is one or the other, the same thing. The end objective is we have to get to the core of my data. And when I say I need to get to the core of my data, I mean I need to understand the data so well that we have almost everything which is required to know about from the data. And the moment I start going deep in my data to understand all the available hidden patterns, yes, it will confess to the reality. It will give me the real picture of what's happening around. right? Because whatever business you are seeing, whatever situations you are seeing in your data, right, that is basically coming across in the numbers in some or the other way in your data. And the moment we start torturing our data, the moment we start kind of playing around with my data, then is the time when we can actually get to the base of every single reason behind your business problems. So it will confess to anything. Basically, it will give me the reason behind the eventfulness of anything which is happening around in the business. So the data is the right solution. The data is the reason through which we will be understanding what's happening around. Right? So with this, moving ahead, now we'll talk about our pointers here. A quick recap to a problem statement, because that is where we have the solution drivers, right? So we're gonna just quickly understand a quick recap on a problem statement. So in its simplest form, a problem statement defines the pain point I hope to solve, right? When I say a pain point, that definitely means there is something in the business which is not right, which is a pain point for me, right? And that is what the pain point I'm hoping to solve, or I'm trying to in my work. This statement should be clear, concise, and it should define a measurable outcome, right? So in the simplest form, the problem statement which we are defining here is nothing but an issue, a pain point which I'm trying to rectify. There is something which is not right. It could be anything. We have seen that it could be any pain point depending on the industries. So maybe for a financial industry, as I was saying, maybe having a fraudulent transaction is the pain point. For an e-commerce website, maybe not generating the revenues would be a pain point. So likewise, I can have multiple pain points, different pain points, depending on what I'm trying to solve here. And this statement, what I'm having here, should be clear, concise, and it should define a measurable outcome. So measurable outcome, it should be measurable. So we have seen that it has to be measured as well. It should be a quantitative number through which we can say that, okay, yes, before the application of my solution, this is how the things were. Now, after application, this is how it is now. So comparison, the quantitative measurement of my outcome is very important to have the solution in place. So ultimately, it should be answering the question, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? So ultimately, my end objective here is that it should answer this question, what is the problem that we are trying to solve? And creating a problem is also an iterative process. So we have understood this, again, very important thing. So it's not always mandatory to have a domain knowledge for a data science guy, but yes, always good to have skill. But cases, if you have a problem statement which you have coined right now, and you might not know whether this is the right problem statement or not, right? So for that, for any unknown domain, if you're trying to understand a problem statement, it's always advisable, and it happens also, people like the data science tech team, they always talk to the subject matter experts who are working day in and day out on that business, and they try to understand the key terminologies, the problem statements around these iterative processes, and then ultimately with better understanding, we try to optimize and revise the statements which has been created for the problem. Very normal. So that's how we say problem statement is always an iterative process here. Right? So now with this, let's move to our the topic today, which is trying to understand the key drivers, and we will be taking the reference of big data for identifying the key drivers for my problem statement. So let's first try to understand what is a big data. right? So big data has emerged in the last decade from a combination of business needs and the technology innovations. Both are equally important. Let's try to understand this. So even now, in some industries, we still are not generating too much of data. So when I say too much, again, it's a very subjective term. So maybe for me, 1 GB of data is too much to process. Yeah. Maybe my infrastructure or the technology which I'm using to process or to consume this 1 GB of information is very primitive. And maybe I'm built up to process only few MBs of file. Like in the earlier days, we used to have the floppy disk where we had the memory of 8 MB or 16 MB, whatnot, right? Yes, I mean, the bigger floppy disks were having so minimalistic space. But now we can store TBs of data also in the microchip, right? So we have evolved with time. Why this has evolved? Because the data consumption, the data generation has increased, right? So the demand, the business needs have increased in such a way where big data has been generated. So for now, you can imagine you are connected to your mobile phone every single day. It's a digitalization world, right? So every second you are generating some or the other data. You are generating the data, right? You have your location services, you have your call patterns, you have your application usage patterns, your movement, your battery usages, everything is a data. You're surrounded by data, in fact, right? And these all informations are some or the other way getting stored by your providers. You're giving the data consent for something or something you're not. So whatever you're giving the data consent on, you are generating the data for that. And that data is getting processed by some or the other way to have the business requirement met. That could be personalized recommendations. So business needs have increased in such a way that the data which is getting generated, it has increased n-folds in the past decade. And if the business need has changed, and if the need is in such a way that yes, we need to have the right set of requirement for my data, then yes, I need to have the technology as well to process it, to store it. Very simple example. So earlier days, as I was talking about the floppy disk, now 8 MB in a bigger floppy disk is not even compared to a TB of data on a smaller microchip. Technology innovations. Now, you don't even need to store your data on your local machine. You can have it on the cloud. You don't even need a hardware. You don't even need a practical space at your own location. You can just simply store everything on the cloud, which is like a virtual storage space. The processing has improved tremendously. So big data is basically has emerged on the reason where we have started generating such a big amount of data, which was not possible for the earlier technologies to process, to consume. And then the increasing business needs. Along with the technology innovations, we have started building up the newer data pointers. And the number of companies that have big data at the core of their strategy have become very successful at the beginning of the 21st century. The companies who have started exploring and utilizing the big data as their prime strategy, they have become very successful. For example, companies including Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix. So these are some prime organizations which have realized the importance of big data and the need of the hour in terms of the business, and the right innovations in technologies in their business strategies, to consume this big data and eventually help the business understand the right requirement for it. Right? So that's where the things have changed, the things have emerged, and that is what we're going to be looking at. So now here from the big data perspective, we have been talking around the usage patterns, we have been talking about the different complexity, the different enormous volume of data we are supposed to process. And then eventually the companies, the major companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, they have started consuming this and they have started realizing the importance of the big data and eventually leveraging the advantage towards this area. Right? Now, let's try to understand a few business drivers here. So the number of business drivers are at the core of this of success and explaining why big data has quickly risen to become one of the most coveted topics. So we are going to look at the business main drivers, the key solution drivers, which can be identified from the pointers of big data. So here we are talking about 6 major pointers here, which have been playing the key role in identifying the business needs. Talking about digitization of my society. So going digital has become one of the prime key drivers for any potential business problem which you're looking at. So the digitalization of my environmental around, so digitalization of my data set on my different technologies. So digitization of my society can actually be identified as one of my potential business drivers. Second, the decrease of technology cost. Very important point, guys, very important point. So if you remember, earlier the same floppy disk would have costed around 300-400 bucks for 8 MB storage. And now we are talking about a 500 rupees chip card which can store maybe GBs to TBs of data. Right? And now the technology has evolved so much that we have revolutionized the entire thing, and the technology has eventually decreased with time in terms of cost. An important role and significant role in terms of driving my entire business. Third, cloud computing. So, and again, another very important area where now industries have been exploring and they're able to identify the right business drivers, cloud computing. In cloud computing, we have various components. There's something called as infra as a service. Then we have storage as a service. We have platform as a service. We have application as a service. So cloud computing, you think cloud computing as a virtual machine itself, which is doing everything for you. You don't have even a physical machine at your place. You just need an internet connectivity and that's it. And you can access your machine remote. Starting from my storage services of storing my data on the cloud, to have the infra setup ready. So you don't need any infra setup. You don't need any platform to run your applications. You don't need any application as a support. So basically providing every single thing on the virtual environment. You are not supposed to have any physical machine. You're not supposed to have any runtime environment for your software to run. Again, becoming my key solution drivers for any business here. Then we talk about increased awareness. So maybe in my previous days, I still was generating the data, but I did not know how to use it, right? So awareness, generating the awareness, having the awareness of the usages which is supposed to be happening from the big data, from the data which we are generating. Now the industries, the organizations have started realizing the importance of data. And with this increased awareness of my potential solutions of my data, now we are able to take some strategic decisions in terms of success towards the business. Social media applications. Now, social media drives the business, in fact, right? And in fact, social media generates so much of data, and that too in the different formats, which can play a very crucial role in terms of understanding towards your business needs. Again, play a key crucial role in terms of clarifying the business demands. Last but not the least, Internet of Things. Smart sensors, remote devices, right? Now you can basically smart switches are coming up. You can wave your hand and you can turn on your lights. You can use your curtains with the maybe a button in your hand, a remote in your hand. So all the smart sensors around you, which is working along with you in day-to-day life, all are Internet of Things. So those upcoming smaller devices, the Internet of Things, which is playing some or the other way crucial role in your day-to-day life, are also generating enormous data, and then that is where again becoming my key driver. So the connectivity between these smaller Internet of Things devices and helping and understanding how this can be used for respective business needs going to play an important role here. So understanding the usages of these Internet of Things, the smaller devices, again is going to play a crucial important role in terms of my business. So now let's try to understand each of them one by one in detail, and let's try to see how each of them plays an important role in understanding the key solution business driver role. Starting with the digitization of my society. So big data is largely consumer driven and consumer oriented. What do we mean by that? So it is largely consumer driven. So consumer driven and consumer oriented. So ultimately, if the data is getting generated and if I have to leverage that data for my business success, I need to understand what and how this data has been oriented. How exactly we are driving this consumer data for the business needs. It is purely driven by what my demands and what my business requirement from the consumer is. And it is purely oriented towards the success of my consumer. Like simple example, same thing. If I say that I'm looking for a finance industry, I'm working for a finance industry and I'm looking for, say, fraudulent transactions, what benefit it would make if I have the information of Indian cricket team, what they might have had in the lunch today? How does that make a difference? So what my consumer demand is, what my consumer need is, which is basically in terms of having the identification of my fraudulent transactions. If this can be manufactured, if this can be handled by my business, need of the hour is I'm looking for a solution which is largely driven towards my financial industry requirement. I'm talking about understanding the data. I'm talking about identifying the right problem statements and giving me the solution revolving around my problem statement which I'm talking about. And also you have to understand one thing. So most of the data in the world is generated by the consumers itself, who are nowadays always on. So what do we mean by always on? So basically, we are connected by smart devices around us, right? So be it like a smartphone or all the fancy sensors which you can imagine, be it from your car, be it from your mobile phone, like any digital technology you're using, always on. You're generating data in some or the other way every single second. And the data here is enormously generated by the consumers themselves. And here in this case, if I am looking for a personalized recommendations, if I am the consumer of that solution, then even I am the one who myself is giving the information about my data. Right? So I'm saying, right, where I am right now, what is my preferences, what I'm doing. So all my activities is nothing but a form of data which is generated in the world. And the reason why it is getting consumed because we are always on, we are always connected to our devices. We talk about connected devices. So the digitization of my society has enabled the enormous population of my data which is getting generated every single second, which with the digital technology we are surrounded with. As you can see, most people now spend 4 to 6 hours per day consuming and generating data through a variety of devices and applications. Can you just imagine? Like every single person is spending around 4 to 6 hours per day consuming and generating the data. Right? Like right now, I'm doing an online stream, I'm generating a data. This video which is going live, it's a data. I am generating the data. And at the end of the day, we will be the one consuming this as well. Right? So most people now actually spending 4 to 6 hours per day consuming and generating the data. Social media, right, guys? So we talk about Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. With every click, with every swipe, with every messages we are sending, a new data is getting generated and it is stored in a database somewhere around the world. That is an information. That is the data. So all your records, all your behavior, all your patterns in some or the other way is getting tracked. And whatever you are doing, it is getting generated, created as a data and getting stored in a database somewhere around the world, and which eventually will be used for the consumption purpose. And with the help of that generated data, we will be creating some solutions. Right? This is how the digitization of my society is playing a very key role in any potential solution which we're trying to build up in my problem statement. Right? So that being said, now you have realized the importance of digitizations of my society. Now, post this, we'll move towards our second very important point, which is the decrease of technology costs. So again, this has been playing a very crucial role because now it has enabled the industries to explore around the multiple fancy options which was technically not feasible some time back in my history. And the reason to that is because now we are able to do the practically impossible sometime back in the history, because now it has become so affordable. It is related to collecting and processing massive quantities of diverse data has become increasingly more affordable. So we have been talking about generating and processing the mass quantities of my data. So every now and then we have been generating the data, massive quantities, high variety, and then we say that the data has become increasingly more affordable with time. So earlier, simple example, maybe a floppy disk, if you remember, of 8 MB or 16 MB storage would have costed you around INR 300 to 400 bucks. Now imagine 8 MB of file. Now you don't even have, you might have an audio file of more than 8 MB right now, right? So the technology has evolved so much that now we can store TBs of data in mere about $1,000. Do you think? Just imagine the entire progress which has been made, right? And also think about the processing speed. So earlier, the machines were so expensive, the computational capabilities were less, right? We were not able to achieve the clock speed in a good speed, in a good way, and also we were not able to process the higher dimension data within the time frame which we are looking at. And with increased technology advancements, now we have the smart machines, we have the advanced machines or the processing capabilities which are able to handle the different variety of data with the maximum speed, with minimalistic loss. And this has become so affordable with every now and then increasing day. So this technology has actually advanced. At the same time, it has become so affordable that now it has enabled the business to explore the importance of different variety of data which we have. And the cost of data storage and the processor keep declining, making it possible for even the small businesses and individuals to become involved with the big data. A very interesting statistics, if you could see, source from one of the very standard website. So where you can see here what's happening, look at this. So I have the storage price per USD of per MB, price USD per MB I'm looking at. Look at this, in 2005 it is rocket high, and then it has started declining. And can you see this? For all the computation capabilities, SSDs, they have evolved in somewhere around 2012-13. Hard drives, they have been around, but very expensive. And then hard drives, flash stick card, or the DIMM, all of this, they've started from somewhere. And can you see all of them have a declining trend? The historical cost of computer memory and the storages which we are looking at. This is a clear-cut example where we are seeing with the increasing timeline, we are seeing a standard decrease in my cost for whatever storage or processing technology which we are looking at. Right? And this has enabled the business to fully utilize the capabilities of data, because now we know that it is affordable to store the data, to process the information, and to have the right set of leverage which we can take from these data pointers for our business. Moving ahead, talk about cloud computing. Cloud computing environments where data is remotely stored in distributed storage systems. What do we mean by that? So distributed storage systems. I do not have a physical machine with me, but still I'm able to process the information likewise. I'm able to consume the data which is getting generated. I'm able to store it. I'm able to process it. I'm able to see it. And this is happening with the help of the virtual environment, remotely stored. I do not have a physical machine here. I'm talking about the remote storage of my data in the distributed storage system. And this has easily made it possible to quickly scale up or scale down the IT infrastructure and the facility as pay-as-you-go model. Let's try to understand it one by one. Think about a scenario that you are working for an online merchandise, or you are actually at the head of an online merchandise firm, okay, and you are selling some product online. So obviously you need some server, some storage capabilities where you can have the details of your price listings and all that. And with your infrastructure, with certain minimalistic infrastructure, you are catering, say, hundreds and thousands of your customers. The moment this 1,000 customers shoots up to 10,000, you start getting more and more responses, you start getting more hits to your website. You will be able to handle these 10,000 websites at 10 times of your crowd? No. Your system will crash, your server will crash. So situations like these, you might need additional hardwares. So suppose now you have invested $1,000 to have that setup done, and you need to serve now 10 times more of your clients. So maybe you need to pay 10 times more the amount to set up the infrastructure. So maybe this cost of 1,000 increased to 10,000 because you need to have that server, you need to have that processing capability to tackle these 10,000 customers. And the moment you have these infrastructure setup done at your place, you need the storage space, connectivity is lot many issues. And imagine this 10 now increased to 10 lakh, 1 million or 1 billion. You aim to scale up your industry, right? So what will happen then? Do you think it is practically again possible to keep on adding up the hardwares? No. On some odd days, suppose your general traffic is say 10,000 and suddenly you have announced a sale for 2 days. And then for 2 days, when your average traffic used to be 10,000, that shoot up to say 10 lakh. And it is only for just 2 days. Do you think just for 2 days you're gonna add up the hardware? Practically impossible. So depending on my need, whenever I need an extra computational capabilities, cloud computing provides you that options. It's going to quickly scale up, and if after 2 days you do not need them, you can scale down your infrastructure, and you're only going to pay for those 2 days extra money. That's it. You're not going to buy the additional hardware and keep it for life. No, you're only going to pay as a rent for 2 days, depending on whatever functions you have used, whatever features you have utilized. So whatever you have done, you want to pay as you go. Cloud computing plays a very crucial role here, and it has enabled the businesses to leverage the entire business process to the max. So this means that the organizations that want to process massive quantities of data and thus have the large storage and the processing requirements do not have to invest in large quantities of IT infrastructure. Not required. You can utilize the cloud computing capabilities, and obviously you'll be paying some minimalistic fee for that. But this has enabled the business to process the massive quantities of data without having any challenge in anything. Again, one of the very crucial, important factor which has enabled the data science driving solutions. Next, we talk about awareness. So in the last decade, the term data science and the data scientist have become tremendously popular. Now, every now and then, you might be hearing data science, data scientist. Everybody wants to become a data scientist. So this has tremendously increased over past, I would say, last decade or so. And accordingly, the demand for data scientist or the similar job titles also has increased tremendously, and many people have actively become engaged in the domain of data science suddenly. Because two factors. The organizations have started leveraging the importance of data. They have started realizing the importance of data. And at the same time, once we have this leverage, we are also able to understand how we can consume this. And for the consuming purpose, we have the right set of people who are actually more like a demand and a supply thing. Yes, the industries are trying to explore more towards the data side. They're trying to understand, they're trying to use the power of data to take the strategic business decisions. And if this demand is increasing, the supply has to increase the same way. And that is where now people are becoming more and more aware that yes, the business is also understanding the use of data. At the same time, people are also understanding that yes, there is an increased demand. And likewise, the awareness. As a result, the knowledge and the education about data science has greatly professionalized and more information becomes available every single day. You might be seeing a lot of blogs floating around. So many people are doing active research over in this field because anyway, it's a research field. So people have started realizing the importance of the field, and likewise, it has been greatly professionalized and become more available every single day. So the actions, the education, whatever the information you need to start your career, you are able to see them. In fact, the research papers are getting published very often. People are doing active researches in this area. So awareness has become really up to notch for the data science as well in the past decade or so. Then we talk about towards our social media. Yes, everyone understands the impact that the social media has on our daily life. However, in the study of big data, social media plays a role of a paramount importance. Why? Because social media, in fact, generates the amount of data which is demonstrating your behavior. Right? What kind of a content you are more inclined towards, what is your frequency, what is your recency. So social media does play a paramount role in terms of your big data and the solution provided by big data. So we are basically surrounded by the digital technologies around us. So and we have studied almost 4 to 6 hours we are investing our time to generate the data on social medias and whatnot. And the amount of data, the quality of data which we are generating on social media, this is heavily utilized for multiple big data solutions which we can think of. So not only because of the sheer volume of data that is produced every day, but also because it provides nearly real-time data about my human behavior. Very important. So two things. We talk about volume here, and then we talk about the true behavior. And we have multiple platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. All of these platforms have some or the other leverages or the leeway about my activity on the data on the social media platforms. And on these platforms, we are generating nearly real-time data and which is demonstrating my true human behavior. And this data which is generated on the social media platforms, it is getting utilized by the industries for generating multiple data science solutions that includes maybe a like-to-like recommendations or like my, it could be for anything. I'm generating personal marketing agendas likewise, people segmentation, targeting, all of this is happening by your true behavior, and accordingly, I'm able to classify who you are. So yes, Social media again play a very crucial role in terms of driving my solution here. Then at last comes about my IoT, Internet of Things. Is the network of physical devices, understand this, network of physical devices, vehicles, home appliances, and other items embedded with electronics, softwares, sensors, actuators, and network connectivity, which enables these objects to connect and exchange data. Any sensor around you which you can think of is basically an IoT. Simple days, I have been hearing about auto cut motors, right? So for example, you have traditional motor in your places, in your home, which is, getting the water from my bore wells and dumping into my tanks. I have IoT sensors set up in my tanks, which can gauge the level of water which has filled up, and that will send the signal to my motor, which will eventually turn off if it has reached a certain level in my tank. Smart sensor. In now recent days, in your cars you have reverse parking sensors, right? So these sensors analyzes the distance between your car and the nearest obstacle and sends you a beep alarm like, oh, you are too close, right? So any of these devices or appliances which is embedded with some electronics, softwares, and some actuators which is sending some signals, sensors, which is enabling the object to connect and exchange data, called as my IoT. And it is increasingly gaining popularity as consumer goods provides start including smart sensors in every day-to-day appliances. We have been talking about smartphones, we talk smart fan, smart lights, smart curtains. How are they working? Who is governing that? So all of these there have been a lot of improvements which is happening in this area as well, and that is where my internet sensors comes into picture, Internet of Things. And these are the appliances which are governing my business as well. So in around 2010, around 10 devices that were expected to be connected to internet on an average, and this number has expected 5 times to be increased, and it has increased 5 times by 2020, and now we are seeing on average 50 devices are connected. And you can see how the demand has increased. So all of these, whether it is digitization of my society or whether it is technology cost cuttings, decrease in my technology cost, awareness, Internet of Things, social media, all of these are my one or the other prime places, prime reasons which is driving my key solution, guys. So with this, I'm pretty much done. This is what I wanted to cover for today. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody is having any question, so we can talk about those questions. But I hope you get a fair idea about what are my prominent drivers of my solution of my business here. And we are talking about my different things, whether it is digitization or IoTs or sensors or my technologies, awareness. All of these are one of the other way my important key criteria. So with this, guys, thank you so much for being patient and listening to me. So I've intended to cover this content today. But now in the next class, we'll move towards more technical concepts. We'll try to understand a few of the metrics which is needed to evaluate, right? What are my right solutions, right? So we're going to talk about some key metrics involved in multiple business problems. So that's going to be our next agenda. So we'll see you in the next class, guys. Thank you so much and see you in the next one. Thank you, Piyush. Bye-bye.